Hello and welcome to another audio analysis. In today's video we're going to be looking at the newest track from the British rock/metal collective Sleep Token titled Vore. This song is the fifth track to be released from their upcoming album Take Me Back to Eden, which has actually finally been announced as being released on May the 19th. Given the heavy diversity we have seen on the four previous tracks from the album so far, it will certainly be very interesting to see if Vore does follow suit. For those of you wondering what the title of the track could possibly mean, it is a Latin suffix that references to the idea of eating, so we could see this track really tie in with ideas such as gluttony, one of the 7 deadly sins. So will this track provide you with a full stomach or leave you wanting more? Let's take a look at exactly how it sounds. Okay, already we're seeing a much heavier track than I was probably expecting. Very guttural screams, quite fitting considering the track is all about eating, the idea of Vore, and also got some really interesting mixes in the actual lyrics as well. Your viscera welcome me in, so your internal organs effectively. So straight away we're getting this idea of being consumed, and there is actually a form of, I think it's vorophilia, which is kind of like a sexual desire revolved around eating or consuming something whole. Don't ask how I know that, but it seems like that's really going to be tied in possibly with the idea of this track. It's almost, I don't even think this is Vessel on the vocals. This sounds different. It sounds like it's got almost a slightly more feminine touch to it, which is something quite weird. I can't really pick it up fully, but it definitely doesn't sound like him, I don't think. But obviously when it's kind of being this almost like black metal scream, it's really hard to pick that out. But straight away we've got the ideas of coming in, the idea of after death, so being consumed by something, and the idea of voice in my head as well. It's quite an interesting opening line because it's that idea of you become an afterthought, so it's after that consumption. Okay, this is quite interesting because it definitely feels like we've got two perspectives. This feels like two different people. There's certainly that first verse really doesn't really feel like Vessel. Vessel's just come in then with "Are you in pain like I am?" So this idea of being devoured by something, it could be maybe something such as depression or different things like that. But it's quite interesting how they mixed it in with the idea of kind of that full-born consumption with life. My life is torn, my bones they bleed. So it could also have these religious ties as well. The idea of my body and my blood. So we could see this in the form of maybe sacrifice as well. There's lots of things going on in this first verse, but it's not really kind of heading towards one single direction. I love how we've got this transition as well from these guttural screams to the much softer tones of Vessel. Again, just another showing of them really flipping the script on some of these transitions. And I like as well, we've got more metaphoric language that really does tie in the idea of throat of gods. We've got these two ties in with this idea with being eaten, with being consumed, using a throat, perfect metaphor, and the idea of gods as well. They're always tying in this idea of worship. And you could maybe look at this as a little bit of an Adam and Eve kind of story, with the idea of the woman being kind of tempted, Eve being tempted by by the snake, by the serpent to eat the apple. So maybe tying in with that idea of gluttony, that kind of going after that, the obsessiveness of really just kind of betraying God. So there's definitely a few different ties, but it's still not really going towards one particular idea. But one thing that I'm noticing just purely from the video on this, we have got this statue, and it's got the praying mantis arms, they consume things whole. We've got the serpent body, snakes devour everything in one go, and the idea of what look like Venus flytraps effectively. Again, something else that just kind of encases something, takes it whole. So it's definitely kind of, the visuals are certainly showing more of that side on this track, the idea of devouring something whole. Okay, now I'm starting to get some potential ideas of the idea of possession. This almost like demonic style. We've got the demonic screaming on the actual track. That idea of a broken body and something looking for a new host, a demon looking for a new host. So there is lots of different things really at play here. It's very open and it's very vague. And I also want to touch on the music. I mean, the drumming and the guitars in the background, really keeping that fast pace at the start, really adding those really pounding walls of sound, really building those layers up around those screamy devil-like vocals. So great again how they constructed the music around the concept and around the idea. Okay, it's quite interesting because we are getting some more ideas actually being thrown into this track. This idea of obsession, and that can be slightly tied in with this idea of gluttony, wanting to consume something to yourself, not sharing it. So this could be, again, another idea you could look at is the idea of a relationship. You can't have somebody that you really want, so you're obsessing over them and you just want to have them to yourself. This could also tie in with potentially another avenue here. There's lots of them on this track. The idea of grief, being grief-stricken when a loved one does pass away, and you kind of absorb their memories and they become yours and they live on through you. So that's another way you could look at it. The idea of I can have you to myself for once. The idea that you've had somebody, you've lost them, but you can kind of have their memories and have the memory of them just to yourself, those precious memories that you may have made with somebody. So we are getting a lot of different avenues. This is a spider web of a song. It's very open to interpretation, which is really interesting to see. Okay, I was a little bit confused by that last lyric, that idea of "Are you in pain like I am?" This could potentially tie around the idea of potentially going to hell or something like that for your sins, something like that. The idea of being constantly in pain, he ties with death. There's really a lot going on in this track. There is lots of different avenues, different ways you can explore it. We have got the idea of gluttony as well, that's really tied in through the idea of Vore, this idea of kind of being swallowed whole. So you could be effectively being swallowed by the jaws of hell or something like that. But there is so many ways of looking at this. The idea maybe the devil on your shoulder. It's hard to really pinpoint the track down to one specific idea like we have been able to with most of the other tracks on this album. It does feel like it's much more open in its style, but it's showing something new from the band. We have got these death metal guttural screams coming in, and again it has that idea of a two-way conversation. It definitely felt like these higher screams weren't coming from Vessel. It was almost like it was a two-person conversation coming in, but it was hard to really pinpoint exactly in what way this was being formed. But certainly some interesting ideas. I don't think it's probably as strong as some of the other tracks we have heard from the album, just because of it doesn't have that cohesion to the lyrics. It just doesn't really feel like it's quite as empowered, because you're not really sure where you're going with the actual track. But again, great to see them showing some different styles, and it's going to be interesting to see how this fits on the album, because it is going to follow straight on from Aqua Regia. So we're going from probably the softest to the heaviest track, but it may form some kind of overarching story about getting back to Eden or something like that, but that is purely speculation for now. But certainly a very interesting track, something new again from the band. But I wasn't overly set on the lyrics, but I like that they're leaving it open to interpretation, but you can draw lots of different things from it. But I definitely feel the focus was more on this idea of swallowing something whole, really being absorbed either, like say, by the jaws of hell, or being obsessing over somebody and being kind of corrupted and absorbed just completely by this person that you can never actually have. So that will be everything for today's video, but please let me know your thoughts about what you think the lyrics mean for this track. We'd love to hear some alternate opinions on this one, because as I say, it's one that's left me a little bit baffled as exactly how other people are going to interpret it, so I would love to know your thoughts. And as always, if you want to see more content like this, then please do feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next audio analysis.